Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, classic slash non-classic. This is episode number 789 and Doubleshot number 683. Two Marvel trades, both of whom basically of two particular series that did return to production numbering, though one of them is since relaunched, the other one is rumored to be relaunched soon because the writer's leaving the book. Alright, first up it is Daredevil Back in Black, Volume 6, Mayor Fisk. Collecting Daredevil number 595 to 600. Written by Charles Shaw. Yep, he is the writer of this thing. With Stefano Ladini, who does issues 595 to 597, and the remaining 3 issues are by Ron Garney. And there is a backup story from Mr. 600 written by Christos Gage, artwork by Mike Perkins. Yeah. This, I actually talked to Matthew Rosenberg about this particular storyline because, well, the Kingpin series kind of basically set the series up. Yeah, this is all Charles Show's idea to do. I got handed to Charles Show for doing something original with the Kingpin. Making him the mayor of New York was probably by far a brilliant stroke of genius. He's still the mayor right now, though there was a brief period of time where he was incapacitated, and, well, I'll talk about the end of this. Yeah. Kingpin is elected mayor off panel. Now, according to Rosenberg, he actually had planned in the Kingpin series, it was going to be a lot more than 5 issues, that he was going to have the series deal with the actual election, but he wanted to basically pull a surprise. My guess is Charles Shaw must have borrowed this idea from Mark Waid when he did that in the 24/7 story, when it was revealed when Spider-Man came back from their dimension after being gone for 3 months that Jameson was elected mayor of New York, and he was mayor for roughly. He was mayor for quite some time. He was mayor for about, I think it was about 5 years. Yeah, he was mayor for 5 years. Fisk only got elected mayor in the comic just last year. I should point out that when the last trade was released of the series was back in December. Yeah, it's been when this thing came out last month, it had been 8 months since the everything out. Basically, this is just a 6-issue storyline. I would have thought maybe they would have released this back in June, or at least maybe in July, but no, they released it in August, which is a little weird. Yeah, and during the course of the storyline, Matt Murdock, who starts out working, who was actually still working for the DA, he had been since the start of this run, decides he was going to start an investigation to investigate what actually to take them the Kingpin. His boss said no, and then later on, Willis Fisk himself calls up Matt Murdock to become deputy mayor. He says, "Sign me up." So he becomes new deputy mayor, and he basically decided to revive the whole rules and regulations. I don't know if this is true or not when it comes to deputy mayor of New York, where this was started back in the 40s, and this was basically just a figurehead role, just somebody who goes to all these functions so that the mayor doesn't have to. But yeah, deputy mayor's got a good amount of power. And during the course of the storyline, yeah, also, Muse comes back. Yeah, first time since the Dark Arts story arc. Yeah, it had been a while. And also, Frank McGee came back. Those who know who this character is, he is a detective who made his first appearance in the pages of Inhuman, who is a creation of Charles Shaw, and as far as I know, is still alive. I don't think that he's been killed off during the Death of the Inhuman miniseries. As far as I know, he hasn't, because a good chunk of characters killed off in the miniseries were in fact creation of Charles Shaw. And he informs Daredevil because, well, he doesn't trust Matt Murdock very much about Muse escaping from New Adzeland. So Daredevil goes after him, goes up to Muse, and Muse also basically puts mirrors across the city. Like firstly, he did one of Daredevil where he basically does a quote. Kind of a similar. It's a semi-quoting Rich Nixon's famous line, like saying, "I'm not a crook." Yeah, and he also does one for Spider-Man and the Punisher. When Kingpin saw the Punisher one, he's probably pretty happy. He probably was very impressed with how much a good artist that Muse is. And Muse himself dies in issue 600. I was a little surprised the show killed him off. I mean, he had just brought this character back, and he had been gone for about a year. Yeah, he'd been gone for at least a full year, and come back now was a pretty good idea. I got handed to Shaw for doing that. And I got handed to this storyline was really good. The last issue is basically Kingpin's holding a conference, and a lot of the heroes, like I said, Daredevil, are trying to take on some crime boss, and all the heroes get arrested. Yeah, apparently Fisk has got this anti-mask crusade. I'm like, did Show also borrow an idea from John Ostrander from Legends, where it basically is saying all heroes are bad? Yeah, and Daredevil pointed out though, and Matt Murdock pointed out though, yeah, the police are not equipped to handle someone like Muse. Let the heroes handle him. And he doesn't immediately agree, but he goes after him. Daredevil tries to take on Kingpin in Central Park, and then all of a sudden the Hands show up, who then fires arrows at him. He's still alive. And they mention how because Fisk is a pacifier, he thought, oh yeah, maybe the head of the city council. Yes. Okay. Okay. Anyways. Yeah. Okay. Anyways. Alright. Okay. Anyways, so yeah. Murdock is named the new acting mayor of New York while Fisk is in the hospital. I got hit. This was actually really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Uh, Also nice to see Maria Lopez. Yeah, first time Daredevil and show up in here. They also threw in like the rest of the Defenders in here, along with Spider-Man. And Spider-Man for some reason is the rest, even though later on in the Spider-Man book, Kingpin has got no problem with him. Yep, I'll give this book a 9.5 out of 10. Next up, it is Invincible Iron Man, The Search for Tony Stark. Yeah, another book that went back to triple numbering. This one is a 8-issue storyline that lasted from 593 to 600. This is the finale to Brian Michael Bendis' 3-year run for the Iron Man title. Yes, the end of 3 years in the book. And here are the artists for these issues. For 593, now Alex Malee pretty much does like a lot of the interior artwork for a lot of these, pretty much like all these issues. Yeah, him and Stefano Cavalli, he's pretty much the artist for all these issues. But 600, aside from Stefano Cavalli and Alex Malee, you also have Dave Marquez, Daniel Cunha, Liam Francis Yu, Gary Alexander, Jim Chung, Mike Didal Jr., Mark Bagley, Andrew Hensley, Scott Hanna, and Andrea Sorrento. Yeah, my friend Edgar was viewing this, and his biggest problem with the storyline was the fact that it took a long time just to decide, oh yeah, let's go find Tony Stark. Now, there's one character I kind of forgot that was actually in this storyline, even though he didn't play a big role, but it's surprising to see him. Tony Stark's brother, Arno Stark. Yeah, when he showed up in here, this is probably his first appearance in a miniseries of Iron Man versus the Hulk from Original Sin. It had been, I'd say, about 3-4 years since last seen, so it's been a while. Nice to see him. We also have Blade show up in here. Yeah, even when Blade showed up here, I'm like, yeah, I was a little confused even when this issue came out, when he showed up in one of these issues, like, really, Blade? Why Blade? Blade, as far as I know, prior to this, has never shown on the pages of Iron Man. And yet Blade, for some reason, decided to throw him in because they're basically rebuilding S.H.I.E.L.D. And they even threw in Leonardo da Vinci from Jonathan Hickman, Dustin Weaver's S.H.I.E.L.D. series. Yep. And apparently Tony Stark basically decided to kill himself at the guy in his coma, and decided to have where he has no hair. No facial hair, no hair on his head, no eyebrows. And he also cloned Rhodey. I should point out that when it comes to Rhodey being cloned, this is the second time he's been cloned. Yes, the last time he was cloned was back at the end of the Greg Pak run of War Machine back in 2009. So yeah, I think Bendis must have took the idea from Greg Pak for that particular thing. Now, I think that bringing him back, this is probably Bendis basically being apologizing for killing him off in the first place, because I'm sure he regretted killing off Rhodey at the start of Civil War II. Of course, he also killed off the Hulk, though Hulk was brought back in the pages of Avengers No Surrender. I kind of really enjoy the storyline and the fact that a lot of the issues are basically homages to like classic Iron Man covers, which you got appreciated doing that. Surprising, no, Layton himself never actually did a cover for this particular thing. I would have thought though for issue 600 that they would brought back Layton to maybe do a variant cover or maybe a couple pages, but no, no Layton. Though here's the thing about Layton. The last book he ever did for Marvel was back in 2010 when he did the Iron Man Legacy of Doom miniseries. I kind of wish he would have at least done maybe a couple pages for 600 because after all, he was an artist for a good chunk of the Iron Man's history, like a good 10 to 20 years. He was one of the recurring, one of the many artists. He had started drawing the book back in the late 70s and drew it on and off up until around the late 90s. Yep. They also brought back they also have in here Tony Hassan, I think her name is. Yeah, who is that? Tony Ho, who's actually the daughter of the man who helped Tony build his first suit. Nice the fact show up in here, despite the fact she's a creation of Al Ewing. Yes, I think show up in here is a good idea. Yes. As far as I know, reading this, Tony Stark does not exchange a word of dialogue with her. I would have thought he would have hired her on the spot because if it had been her father, he wouldn't be alive. They even brought in Madison Jeffries from the Alpha Flight series. Him was a little surprised to see because I did not expect him to show up in an Iron Man book because mostly he sucked the X-Men books for years. But yeah, they also reveal basically who Tony Stark's father is. He's an agent of Hydra. Yep. Tony Stark's biological father is evil. Yeah. But this is really, I actually do kind of like the storyline, though the pacing is kind of one of the big problems with this thing. And Bendis kind of dragged this up to 600. And people kind of suspected very early on the 600 was going to be his final issue for this particular run. Good way to lift off the run. Okay. It was a good idea to lift off at the end of this particular run, which lasted for 3 years. Give this book a 9.5 out of 10. My final thoughts for this particular run, which has been going on for about 3 years now. I review pretty much now every single trade that collects Bendis' run. It only lasted 3 years, and the book got relaunched once during the entire, not 2 or 3 times. Some people may think of that. Even though it was relaunched at the start of his run for a new #1, but during the course of the run, the book ever started once, and that was like 1 year after he started his run. Though I honestly feel as though that was completely unnecessary to do. And his run was actually, I would probably say, a little bit longer than Kieran Gillian's run. Gillian's run was he was in the book for a good 3 years, and I would say that Bendis must have did a few more issues than he did. Maybe. But he also did something Kieran Gillian could not do. Launched 2 spin-off series. Yep, first it was International Iron Man, which introduced Tony's biological mother, who would play a role in the Iron Man series afterwards. And of course, he launched the infamous Iron Man series, which was a spin-off of this book. Basically, Bendis kind of set up at the start of his run, giving Doom his own armor. And at the end of this, Doom, well, goes back to his home country and builds his castle, which kind of, I would say Bendis probably put that there because he probably knew Dan Slott was going to do Fantastic Four. He left it there as a plot thread to be tied up in the pages to continue the pages of Fantastic Four, which actually just restarted, just came back just like last month. Yeah, it came back. And otherwise, though, I thought this was a really good run. And I gotta say, for his final issue, having like almost every artist who worked with him over the course of his entire period of time, he worked for Marvel from 2000 up until 2018. He worked for Marvel Comics for 18 years. And let's see. I think probably the only artist I think there's probably like 2 artists who did not work on Iron Man 600 who worked with Bendis. One was Sarah Pacelli. She did not work on that book. She worked on the 240th issue of the Spider-Man book. And there's also David Finch. I'm a little surprised he never got a chance to do that because he's worked with Bendis several times. I figured it'll be perfect for him to do 600 for at least maybe a couple panels for Iron Man, even though technically he's drawn Iron Man before on Pages of Avengers. But yeah, I kind of felt as though for that he could have at least thrown a couple more artists in there. And I gotta say, I forgot to mention the backup story for Daredevil. Yeah, that was just basically all about Foggy. It's basically kind of a recapping of his history from the moment he started in the comic books back in Daredevil #1 up until present day, kind of recapping what he's been doing over the years. But yeah, so that's really it for this particular review. Stay tuned when I get a chance to do another episode, which will be episode number 790 and Doubleshot number 684. Okay, but we'll see you there. Bye.